I wasn't expecting her that night. The storm outside was heavy, thunder rumbling through the city like it was angry at the world. And I had just poured myself a drink when the knock came, when I opened the door and saw Emily standing there, drenched in rain, barefoot, and wearing nothing but my old navy t-shirt, the one she used to steal from my drawer. I swear my heart stopped. That shirt was more than just fabric. It was a memory, a ghost of our past life. Seeing her, like that wet hair clinging to her cheeks, mascara smudged under her tired eyes, was like being hit by every emotion I had buried since she left. Months had passed since she walked out of this apartment, out of my life, suitcase in hand, saying she needed space, clarity, something she couldn't find with me anymore. The breakup hadn't been explosive. There were no fights, no dramatic scenes, just two people who stopped talking, who let silence grow between them until it became impossible to hear each other. I watched her leave without saying a word, because at the time I didn't know what to say to make her stay. And now here she was again, shivering on my doorstep, asking for nothing, saying even less but her eyes. Her eyes told me everything. I stepped aside and let her in, and she walked past me like she belonged. Like she'd never left, like the last 8 months didn't exist. She didn't bring a bag, not even her phone. Just her silence, and my shirt. I handed her a towel and poured her a glass of whiskey. She wrapped the towel around her waist and sat quietly on the edge of the couch, legs curled under her like she used to do when we watched movies on Sunday nights. The room smelled like her, again lavender and heartbreak. I wanted to ask her 1,000 questions. Where had she been? Was she okay? Why now? Why me? But I couldn't get the words out. Instead, I sat across from her, watching the lightning flash across her face. And for a few moments, we just existed, two broken people in the same space again. Not knowing if this was a new beginning or the cruelest kind of closure. She looked up at me eventually, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know where else to go. That's all she said. And that was all it took. Because despite everything, despite all the hurt and distance, part of me still ached for her. I didn't ask her to leave. I didn't tell her she couldn't stay. I just brought her a blanket and watched her fall asleep on the couch, her breath slowing, her body finally relaxed, like this was the only place in the world where she could rest. And maybe it was. I stood there for a long time, glass in hand, wondering what it all meant. Wondering if the story we thought was over still had chapters left. She looked so small in that moment, vulnerable in a way that broke my heart open, all over again. I should have been angry, should have protected myself. But instead, all I could feel was the weight of the moment, the history between us, the love that never really died, and the strange, magnetic pull that brought her back. To me, in my shirt, in the middle of a storm, like fate was giving us one more chance. And I knew right then and there everything had changed between us. Asterisk, the night air felt heavy, like the walls were holding their breath. Emily was curled up on the couch, my shirt clinging to her damp skin, her bare legs tucked under her like she was trying to disappear into herself. She looked smaller than I remembered, more fragile. I handed her a glass of whiskey, and she took it without a word. We didn't talk, not at first. Just sat in the soft glow of the living room lamp, the rain tapping on the windows like it had something to say. I wanted to speak. I wanted to ask her why she came here, why now, after everything. But something in her eyes told me she wasn't ready, and maybe, deep down, I wasn't either. So I sat with her, 2 feet apart, but miles away. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the glass to her lips, and I could see she had been crying long before the rain started. I told myself I was just being kind, that I was just giving her a place to breathe for one night. But when I offered her my bed and said I'd take the couch, the way she looked at me, soft, almost broken, it stirred something in me that I hadn't felt in a long time. It was after midnight when I finally dozed off on the couch, still fully clothed, mind, buzzing with 1,000 questions I couldn't shut off. But then I heard the quiet creak of the floorboards, opened my eyes, and saw her standing in the hallway. Her hair was dry now, messy but beautiful, falling around her shoulders. My shirt hung loose on her body, barely covering her thighs. She looked hesitant, like she was testing the moment. "I couldn't sleep," she said softly, her voice hoarse, almost shy. I nodded, sitting up. "Me neither." Without another word, she walked over and sat beside me. Close, too close. The kind of close that makes you remember every single thing you've been trying to forget. I should have stopped it. I should have asked more, demanded answers. But I didn't. Instead, I touched her cheek and she leaned into my hand like she'd been waiting for it. The kiss was slow, tentative at first, but it deepened quickly, turning into something raw and desperate. There was no pretending it. Was casual. Her hands clung to me like she was falling, and I held her like I was trying to keep both of us from drowning. It wasn't just about sex. It was something heavier, something we hadn't felt in years, passion mixed with pain, hunger, tangled in memory. We moved like two people who once knew each other deeply and were now strangers trying to remember what it felt like to belong. Every touch was a confession. Every breath, a question we were too scared to ask. We didn't speak, didn't need to. Our bodies said everything. That night, we didn't sleep. We didn't even try. We just held on to each other like the world might collapse by morning. I knew it was dangerous. I knew it would make everything more complicated. But in that moment, with her skin pressed against mine, her fingers tracing the same path they once knew by heart, I didn't care. All I knew was that she had come back wearing only my shirt, carrying a heart full of pain, and somehow mine still beat for her. And whether it was a mistake or not, it was the most alive I'd felt in months, maybe years. And that scared me more than anything. The morning sunlight hit her skin gently, like it was trying not to wake her. I stood in the doorway watching. Her sleep in my bed, wrapped in my sheets, wearing the same navy shirt from the night before. For a moment, it almost felt like nothing had changed, like we were still us before the silence, before the distance, before everything fell apart. I made coffee and tried to convince myself that what happened last night was a one-time thing, a mistake born from loneliness and memory. But deep down, I knew better. That night had meant something. I could feel it in the pit of my chest. When she finally woke, she looked around the room like she didn't recognize it. Or maybe like she recognized it too well. She pulled her legs up to her chest and sat quietly. Fingers wrapped around the mug I handed her, eyes staring into the coffee like it could tell her what to do next. Then she spoke softly, like she had rehearsed it 100 times. "I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. I nodded slowly, not sure I wanted to hear it. Her voice cracked a little as she continued. "I was engaged until 2 days ago." That word engaged hit me harder than I expected. My hand tightened around my coffee cup. I stayed silent, waiting, even though my chest felt tight. "His name's Daniel," she said. "We were together for 6 months. He proposed last week." She looked at me, eyes filled with guilt. I said yes. The words hung between us like smoke after a fire. I tried to speak, but nothing came. Out, my mind was racing. She had been about to marry someone else. Someone she chose after me. Someone who wasn't me. "So, what are you doing here, Emily?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "Why come back to me?" Her eyes welled up, but she didn't look away. "He cheated," she said simply. "I found out 3 days ago. With someone from work, he lied to my face." She swallowed hard. I left him. I didn't know where to go. I drove 4 hours, and before I even realized it, I was here, with you. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to be angry. Was angry, not just at her, but at myself, for still wanting her even after everything. So I was your backup plan. I asked bitterly. She shook her head quickly. No, you were never that. You were the only person who ever felt like home. And just like that, the tension cracked, and all I felt was sadness. She had been hurt, lied to, just like I once had been, maybe even by her. But now she was sitting in front of me, broken in a new way, and somehow I still wanted to be the one who helped her put the pieces back together. I hated how much power she still had over me. How even with that kind of news, part of me still wanted to wrap my arms around her and tell her it would all be okay. But there was a secret between us now, a truth that had changed the shape of everything. She had loved someone else, said yes to a life with him. And even if he betrayed her, the damage was already done. I looked at her and she looked back. And in that heavy silence, we both knew nothing between us would ever be simple again. Days passed, but the space between us only grew. Emily stayed half unpacked, half ready to run again. She slept in my bed, but we didn't touch. We moved around each other like strangers, pretending to be something else. Mornings were quiet. Coffee, small talk, awkward silences. Nights were heavier, full of unspoken thoughts and glances that lasted a little too long. The tension wasn't about lust any more, it was deeper. It was everything we didn't say. She never mentioned Daniel again, and I didn't ask. But his name lived in the air, haunting the space between her words. I couldn't stop wondering, did she still love him? Was I just a safe place to land after the crash? She caught me staring at her once, and instead of looking away, she held my gaze. I know I hurt you, she said. I don't expect you to trust me again. That was the first honest thing either of us had said in days. I nodded, not because I forgave her, but because I finally understood. Love doesn't always come clean. Sometimes it's messy, bruised, confused, and still it shows up. Every time she smiled, it reminded me of who she used to be, the girl who wore my flannel too. Cooked pancakes on Sunday mornings, the one who danced barefoot in the kitchen, who fell asleep with her head on my chest like she was made to fit there. But now she was different, softer in some ways, colder in others, like life had chipped away at her edges. Maybe it had done the same to me. One night I found her sitting on the balcony, knees pulled to her chest, tears rolling silently down her cheeks. I sat beside her and didn't say anything. Just let her lean into me. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke. I thought I knew what I wanted. I thought I was over you. But being with him only made me realize how much I was still trying to find you in someone else. That hit me hard. Because I had done the same thing. I dated someone 2 months after Emily left. It lasted 4 weeks. I ended it because, no matter how good she wasn't her. I told Emily that. I admitted it without shame. She didn't cry harder, she just nodded, like she already knew. That night, we didn't kiss, didn't sleep together, just held each other under a blanket on the couch, like we were trying to remember how to love without hurting. And for the first time since she came back, it felt real, raw, human. We weren't two people rekindling a perfect love story. We were two damaged souls trying to figure out if they still fit together in a world that had changed. I watched her fall asleep on my chest again, and I didn't feel angry anymore, just scared. Scared that I might fall for her all over again. Scared that this second chance might break me worse than the first, but also somewhere deep down hopeful. Because even through all the mess, all the pain and betrayal, we were still here. Still choosing each other one moment at a time. And maybe that was what love really looked like. Not clean, but persistent, quiet, and painfully honest. And that kind of love, that's the kind that either heals you or destroys you. I just didn't know which one it would be yet. Asterisk, it was a Thursday afternoon when everything cracked open. Emily had been living with me for nearly 3 weeks by then, just long enough for routines to form again. She would hum while folding laundry, steal bites from my plate, toss sarcastic comments at me during movie nights, and curl up beside me like it was the most natural thing in the world. We hadn't labeled anything, hadn't even talked about the future. It was all just quiet moments, stolen glances, half steps back into something that felt like home but wasn't quite there yet. I was beginning to believe we could rebuild what we lost slowly, honestly. But love, I've learned, doesn't just carry sweetness. It also carries shadows. That afternoon, I came home early from work. Her car was in the driveway. The TV was off. The house was still. I called her name once, no answer. But I heard a voice, a man's voice, coming from the back bedroom. I froze. Not because I was jumping to conclusions, but because the fear was already in my bones, waiting. I stepped closer and heard her talking. She was on the phone, and what I heard made my chest tighten. "No, I haven't told him," she said. "I can't. Not yet. He still doesn't know about the baby." My vision blurred for a second. The room started spinning. Baby? What baby? She said nothing about being pregnant. Nothing at all. I stepped back quietly, trying not to make a sound. My heart was pounding so loud it echoed in my ears. I left the house without her knowing I was ever there. Drove around the city for hours, hands clenched on the wheel, thoughts spiraling. I wasn't angry that she was pregnant. I was hurt that she had kept it from me. Lied again. After everything. After all the nights we held each other like truth was finally between us. That night when I returned, she was in the kitchen, smiling like nothing had changed. "I made pasta," she said. "Your favorite." I stood there silently, watching her. She looked up, noticed my face. The smile fell. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Tell me about the baby," I said, my voice low. She froze. I could see it in her eyes, the panic, the guilt, the fear. "You heard me?" she whispered. I nodded. She sat down slowly, like her legs couldn't hold her up anymore. "It's not yours," she said. "It's his, Daniel's." Her voice cracked. I didn't plan to come here pregnant. I didn't even know until after I left him. But when I found out, I didn't know what to do. I was scared. "I thought if I told you, you'd push me away, that everything we had left would be ruined. I felt like I couldn't breathe. So you were just going to keep living here, letting me believe this was real while hiding something this big." She wiped her face, tears falling hard now. "I didn't come here to trap you. Came here because I still love you. I came because I had nowhere else to go. Okay. And because I didn't want to go through this alone." I stood there, heart shattered all over again, realizing that love, even the real kind, isn't always enough. It's not always clean. It's not always fair. Sometimes it brings a baby into the middle of two broken hearts and asks them to choose forgiveness or walk away. And right then, I didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew nothing would ever be the same again. Asterisk the days. After her confession, felt like I was walking through fog real, life happening around me, but nothing sinking in. I still went to work, still drank my coffee. But everything tasted different, like something important had been drained from the world. Emily stayed, but things were quiet now. She slept in the guest room, cooked only for herself, and barely looked me in the eyes. I knew she was giving me space, waiting for me to decide if I could live with what she'd told me. I hated how torn I felt. One part of me wanted to run, put as much distance between us as I could. The other part, the louder part, couldn't stop thinking about the way she looked when she said, "I didn't want to do this alone." That part kept reminding me that love, real love, doesn't only show up for the perfect chapters. It shows up when the story gets hard. And this chapter was hard. One night, after a long shift at the shop, I found her asleep on the couch, her hand resting gently over her stomach. Her face looked peaceful in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. And something shifted inside me. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was just afraid. Afraid of being hurt again. afraid of raising another man's child, afraid that if I opened my heart now, I'd never survive losing her a second time. But I also realized this wasn't about what had already happened. This was about what I wanted next. And in that quiet moment, I knew I didn't want a life that didn't include her. I sat down beside her and she woke up slowly. Our eyes met, and without a word, she started to cry. "I'm sorry," she whispered. For all of it, I nodded and reached for her hand. "I'm not walking away, Emily, but I need honesty. From now on, everything. No more secrets." She nodded, tears still falling, and pulled my hand to her belly. It was still flat, barely noticeable, but feeling it made it real in a way that hit deep. "I don't expect anything from you," she said. "You don't have to raise this baby. You don't have to forgive me. I wanted you to know." I looked at here this woman I had loved, lost, and somehow found again to realize that life doesn't always give us clean starts. Sometimes it gives us messy, complicated second chances. And sometimes that's enough. Over the next few weeks, we talked. Really talked. About everything. About what hurt. About what healed. About the future. I told her I wasn't sure I could love a child that wasn't mine. I also wasn't sure I couldn't, because loving her meant loving every part of her life, even the hard parts, especially the hard parts. Months passed. Seasons changed. So did we. I went to doctor's appointments with her, painted the spare room a soft yellow, held her hair when the nausea was too much. And every day my fear got a little smaller and my heart got a little fuller. By the time she held my hand in the delivery room, screaming through the pain, I knew I wasn't just staying for her. I was staying because I wanted to. 'Cause love had brought me back to her. And now love had brought something more. When I held that baby girl for the first time, with Emily's tired head on my shoulder, I realized this story didn't end. The way I thought it would, it ended better. Not with perfection, but with truth. With forgiveness, the kind of love that doesn't leave when it gets hard. The kind that stays.